Now, a human rights activist currently in South Africa is raising awareness about human rights abuses taking place in Cameroon in Central Africa. Tensions have been rising between the Francophone government in Cameroon and English-speaking populations in the northwest and southwest. The conflict has escalated over the past 18 months, and there are reports of gross abuses, murder, rape, and villages being razed to the ground. Barrister Felix Agbor Balla Nkongho is an award-winning human rights advocate and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. He joins us now. Thank you for being with us, Barrister. Can we just start with your history? So you are an Anglophone Cameroonian. You were jailed, I believe, for 9 months, and that was for a peaceful protest against the government. Tell us more.
I'm a Cameroonian from the English-speaking part of the country. Historically, Cameroon is divided into two, the Francophones and the Anglophones, as a result of the Germans and the British colonialism and the French. I was the president of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium that started the protest in October 2016. We were fighting against marginalization and suppression and oppression by the predominantly Francophone government. As a result of that, on the 17th of January, myself and the Secretary General of the consortium, we were arrested, transferred to Yaoundé, tried in a military court on secession, terrorism, attempts to change the form of a state, amongst others, and we spent 8.5 months in jail until a presidential decree released us. Okay, and you maintain that was simply a peaceful protest, and this is about language rights. Yes, the consortium has always stood for a pacifist mode of finding a solution to the crisis. We never opted for violence, and till date we still continue in advocacy on the grounds that we could use peaceful methods in finding a solution. It's not only about language, it's also cultural, historical. It's a combination of many things, you know, and this dates back to 57 years ago. Well, can you explain it? So when I've traveled in Africa, there does seem to be this incredible divide between French-speaking Africans, English-speaking. Often trade sort of skips countries, and here you have in one country these two populations. Have the tensions always been there? Well, you know, the bilingualism, the bicultural and bijural nature of Cameroon could be a strength. If they harness the language, it would be an advantage. Most Cameroonians are working in international organizations because of the French and English. But historically, there's always been marginalization of the Anglophones, of the people of the then southern Cameroons, by those of the former East Cameroon. So these tensions have always existed. Anglophones have always tried to protest, to clamor for more rights, you know, to clamor for equality and to fight against injustice. But the method in which the government reacts is always to repress the people of the southern Cameroons. And this is morphed now to an armed struggle. Currently, we have an armed struggle between separatists who are clamoring for a separate state and the government that wants to maintain the one and indivisibility of the country. And the majority of the population is French, the government mostly French-speaking. How big is the Anglophone population? The Anglophone constitute about 25% of the population, but economically also the Anglophone has they have a strong economy, and in terms of human resources, they are highly educated people, you know, very hardworking, very conscious of their rights, and that is why they have always been speaking out. It's not today. It's been for a long time. They have always been speaking out of their rights. But the problem is that it's mostly a Francophone-dominated government. If you look at the president, you look at the Speaker of the Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate, the head of the Constitutional Council, all of them are Francophones. It's true that the Anglophone is a prime minister, but the prime minister doesn't really have the powers, you know. Initially, we had a power sharing between the Francophones and the Anglophones, where the Francophone was first in command, president, and the Anglophone was vice president. When the constitution was changed, the Anglophone, the Speaker of the Parliament, became the second in command. But things have changed. Now we are fourth in command. But it's not just about positions. It goes beyond positions. It's a cultural thing. Historically, we believe that the way we are treated in the country, we are not treated as equals, you know. We are being marginalized. Our educational system is being trampled upon. Our legal system is, you know, we have the common law and the civil law. The common law is being eroded in favor of the civil law. So these are many problems. Anglophones believe that. Some believe that it's time for them to have a state on their own. So what are the human rights abuses that you'd like to highlight? We're hearing of villages even being razed to the ground. Yeah, between 2016 and now, since the crisis started, we have about 220 villages that have been completely burnt. You know, the AU is talking about refugees, IDPs. I was at the Pan-African Parliament today and followed the discussion. We have more than 500,000 people who are internally displaced. More than 50,000 that in Nigeria. About 2,000 have been killed. More than 1,000 which are in jail. So these human rights violations are widespread and systematic. We carried out a study. When I say we, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa that I head, and the Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Canada, that we launched it on the 3rd of June in Canada, we came to the conclusion that these crimes amounted to crimes against humanity. And there was a need for the international community to open up a commission of inquiry so that they need to be accountability. Because you hardly see a conflict where about 220 villages have been burned. In international criminal law, this would fall in what we call terrorizing the civilian population.
No, this is alarming. So if your village is burnt and you have to flee, where are people going?
These people now live in the bushes. They live in the forest. I've gone to refugee camps. The people are living under very shameful and despicable situations. They don't have basic water, basic health facilities. Malaria is running riot. You know, they cannot take care of their children. So there is the need for the international community to rise up to the plate. This is a very undocumented and underreported crisis. If you see what is happening, kids have not succeeded in going to school for close to 3 years. You know, the level of rape has increased. Armed robbery is running riot. So there is a need for the international community to intervene to find a long-lasting and holistic solution to the crisis facing Cameroon.
So please clarify the political situation. I understand there are separatists, English-speaking separatists. And then there's always two sides. Are these rebels provoking soldiers who then come to the villages to root them out? Or are a lot of these communities peaceful, being burnt out of their villages?
You see, when the crisis started, most of the people were very peaceful. As a result of government's reaction, you know, arresting the leaders, killing people and attacking people, some people became very radicalized. That led to the birth of the separatist movement. It's true that some crimes also are being committed by the separatist movement. Nobody would think that they are angels, you know. But most of these atrocities are committed by government. And for a trained soldier, let's assume that you come to a village where there are separatists or one military guy was killed. You cannot burn an entire village. That's kind of collective punishment. And as a result of burning of these villages, you end up radicalizing people. Because in those villages, there are also people who support the government. There are people who don't believe in separation. But when you burn an entire village, they lose their source of livelihood. There's a tendency that they move now to join the separatist movement.
Why do you think this is being so underreported on, as you say?
Well, I think the current head of state has always succeeded in giving the impression to the world that Cameroon is a paragon of virtue. It's a very peaceful country, and he has succeeded in ensuring that the world doesn't look into Cameroon. But since October 2016, things are gradually changing. That is why I'm sure I'm here today and having this discussion on Cameroon. But the crisis, I have followed a couple of crises in the world. There's a lot going on in Cameroon, you know. There's a lot of crimes against humanity being committed in Cameroon that it's not gaining a lot of attention in mainstream media. I'll give you an example. We filed a petition at the Pan-African Parliament on the situation in Cameroon. But somehow, somebody in the parliament is trying to ensure that petition doesn't see the light of day. Because also Cameroon is good at diplomacy. They have their people who are trying to fight, who are trying to ensure that these discussions on Cameroon don't come to the limelight.
So you're saying the government has friends in the AU? Because my next question was, where is the AU? We keep on saying Africans need to solve African conflicts themselves. I
am a chief exponent of the fact that Africa should solve our conflict. I am not one of those who believe that the West would find a solution to us, because I think that the West have their interests. But the AU, as we speak, has not lived up to expectation. I remember that we wrote another petition to the AU about 30 human rights organizations for the AU to act. The AU did not act. A peace process was supposed to start in Switzerland. The AU, if I were in the AU, I would challenge the Swiss government that process has to take place in the continent. The AU endorsed the process like 2 weeks ago. A lot has to be done by the AU. We have to be seen that African leaders are up to the task. They are trying to find solutions to the problem. We cannot have problems. Why would Cameroonians, Southern Cameroonians and the government meeting in Geneva, for example? Why can they not meet in Johannesburg? Why can they not meet in Accra? Why can they not meet in Nairobi? It still maintains the whole neocolonialist mentality. So the AU has to sit up. For the AU to be respected, they have to intervene, and it falls within the mandate of the AU.
Are you trying to get a voice?
Yes, we're trying to get a voice, and that's why we're doing advocacy. That's why I'm here. That's why we've been lobbying some parliamentarians from the continent for them to speak out. You know, we would be going to the Human Rights Council. We've been at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, just, you know, for the voices of those who are suffering, these women who are living in the bushes, these children who have been internally displaced, these refugees who are suffering in the camps in Nigeria, their voices have to be heard.
Well, final question then. I mean, how worried should we be about this? Do you see the situation getting worse if there's not strong action from the AU?
We have to be worried because of the strategic location of Cameroon. Cameroon is between Central and West Africa, bordered Nigeria, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, and Central African Republic. It means that if Cameroon goes down, that the part of the continent also goes down. You know, refugees will be all over. The crisis will spill out. And I don't think we need another Central African Republic in Africa. We don't need another Sierra Leone. We don't need another Liberia. We don't need another South Sudan. I mean, we should not be the laughing stock of the world. We need to find a solution. And this crisis, which to my personally, I think is a result of bad governance, you know, and staying in power for long. Mr. Biya has been in power for 36 years. All these things also has contributed to the current situation. All
right. Well, thank you for explaining that situation to us and being here tonight. That was human rights activist and lawyer Felix Agbor Balla Nkongho talking to us about the situation in Cameroon.